Okay. Can you guys hear me okay? Please put a 1 in the chat. Make sure you guys can hear me. Let's see here. Get rid of this. I had everything set up. I guess when you have two different StreamYards, it takes everything off. That's a bummer. Okay, got that. No volume. And introduce Steve here in just 1 second. Thank you guys. Good to see everybody. Let's see. Pull this up. Share screen. That one. That one. There we go. Okay, so I've got those videos. Okay, let's bring in Steve here. Howdy, Steve. Long time no see.
Sort of like a camping trip. We spent a lot of time together.
Yeah, we had a great time. And let's see here. Make sure I didn't miss anything at the beginning. Did everybody transfer okay? I see some people said it transferred. It worked. Most people, hopefully it transferred right over. Good deal. 377 peeps. Hopefully, maybe if I have one of my mods, I don't know if they can jump over. And I put the link. All you'd have to do is just go back and say, hey, click the link at the pinned comments. I'm sure they'll make their way over here. Oh, Karen says, no, I didn't intentionally do it. Oh, I'm sorry. It should work for most people. Okay, so yes, Steve and I went out there for 3 days, 2 nights. And first impression, Steve's, while I get some things set up.
Well, I enjoy the outdoors. Absolutely enjoy it, and I want to thank everyone that sent me tips and other things about living at high altitude or camping at high altitude in the wilderness, because it was a different experience than the East Coast. Our elevation here is nothing like out there. You know, we're over, what was it, 7,500 feet altitude or is elevation. And so it was a different experience for me, and extremely remote. I had no cell service. You did, thankfully, so that I could talk to the wife.
Yeah.
But it was, there were so many questions I had that were answered due to traveling there, boots on the ground, the time we spent from the setup of camp, because we got there late that first day on Friday, you know, so we, that Friday afternoon, setting up camp, and all the way through till we broke camp. Extremely learned something every moment I was there.
Interesting. Jana Holverson. I lived in IF. Not sure what IF is. DeOrr Kunz would come into my workplace often. We had mutual friends. I've camped at the camping spot. It's beautiful there. Thank you. Interesting. Yeah, I might have some questions for you. And yeah, this it was totally. There were some things that that I was anticipating that were the same, but there was much more that was very different from what we was anticipating. So let's get into it. We did some tests. We did tests with the creek. We did some tests with the water. I'm going to come out and say, unfortunately, I did not get to be able to get into my wetsuit and get into the reservoir. There was many circumstances that not allow us to complete that, which is a bummer. We had people there camping, which was one of the big ones.
The discovery of how clear it was and how shallow it was on the edges.
Yes.
I mean, there was a lot of things that, and how easy it would be to identify a lost child going into the edge of the creek, especially, or into the reservoir where we were at from our first contact. And when we started taking our pictures and stuff. So, and there's a lot of reasons, but we'll still be able to use our equipment on other cases.
Oh, yeah.
And on, possibly in the future, if we go back and we hit it under the right conditions.
Oh, I got you. Idaho Falls. Thank you guys for correcting me. I'm like, thank you. But yeah, I was so bummed, guys, and I promise you guys I will get the second chance, first chance I get to use that equipment, I will. That, like I said, there's many circumstances that kind of put a wrench in that plan. Many, many, and maybe we'll talk about those when we can.
Well, we worked so hard. There was so much to do, and we didn't know that we would be facing um, all the obstacles and all the data. And we ran a lot of tests. And you were the trooper standing in there and going across the field, transporting the silhouette and climbing those hills, and plus the altitude. And there's a lot to camping and setting up and doing these experiments that, um, you know, we just broke for a few minutes for breakfast, lunch, or supper, and then we were probably asleep each night by 9 easily.
Yeah, there's not a lot of sunlight because of the way it's situated. You got high east. The mountain range is situated on the east and the west, and you're inside this little valley. And so you really only get about 6 to 8 hours of actual sun, and then it's gone between either the east or west mountains.
Yeah, you're in the shade, shadows the rest of the time.
Yeah.
You're not going to stay warm up there in cold conditions. And luckily,
No.
like I said, I brought enough clothing. I had overkill versus what you had.
Yeah. And I always come prepared. And I mean, I was prepared in just about every sense except for heavy clothing. And it's something I'm always over prepared. And it was a little less what I was expecting. And Carol, thank you so much. Just sent me $10 and sent me $10 the other day. Thank you so much, Carol, for the support. It means the world. So let's get into it, Steve. I'm just going to play just the slight timeline,
Sure.
and then we're going to switch to our videos and give you guys some inside looks. We did tests with the creek. We did site test. And the main three that we're going to focus on today, because we've got tons. I mean, I'm still downloading footage. I actually ended up overloading my laptop, and that the whole reason I couldn't go live Friday and stuff is I ended up causing my laptop to end up out of control here. So just a quick little timeline here is we've got this group here. We've got Isaac, the friend of Bob, the grandfather, who is the grandfather to Jessica Mitchell, the mother. We have baby DeOrr in the middle. And then we got mother and father on the right. Jessica and Vernal are also known as DeOrr Senior or DeOrr.
They arrived at the campground late on the evening of July 9th, Thursday evening. It was very late. It was dark. They say they instantly went to bed. From day one, law enforcement told us that all of the people at the campsite were considered persons of interest just because they were simply there.
Next morning, and then he realized how rural it was.
So this is a great view. Let me actually switch back to this one. So here we got a nice overhead view, and these rocky shoals, that which we kind of was one of our areas of interest. But these shoals from this view, now when we look on Google Earth, it does it much more justice because these rocky shoals
basically at the end of the road
are absolutely steep. I mean, they're almost cliff. I mean, you're not walking up those. So we have they get there on July 9th, kind of later at night. They really have time to set up camp, go to bed, wake up. Next day, they wake up. Apparently, Isaac and Grandpa, they go fishing. And just as they get back, Jessica, mother and father and son, Jessica realized that she needed some feminine products, so they're going to go ahead to the store in Lador, which was about 50-minute drive, approximately, a little less, depending on what vehicle you had. Didn't we time it 48 minutes?
Yes, one way. It
Yes.
was 40 minutes and 51 seconds for me to drive in from the store. I mean, but now we were in a van that was not.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
a all-terrain vehicle.
So then they get back. Isaac and Grandpa comes back and says, "Hey, yeah, we found this fish," and so this is where it all kind of goes down. Is what we have here is, and I know the exact spot of point of separation according to the parents, and we'll look at the actual campsite. Like I said, we have our footage. We'll show here in a minute, but I think this is very important because you'll see Isaac. I have it in the way I position these people is how they supposedly said they're moving. Isaac's taking the lead. You got Vernal behind him, and then you got Jessica and the boy kind of tailing slightly behind. Now, see this little tree right here to the left, Steve, right under Isaac? Okay, I'll show you what tree that is. That's the tree kind of where we parked our van. And I'll show you which tree that is. This is where the point of separation was. Now they supposedly DeOrr kind of wanders back.
Her shoulder to make sure the little boy's not following them. And when she was confident he wasn't following, they went to the two spots along the creek where they supposedly caught the.
Now this is where I have an issue, and this is just my opinion. Now you see Isaac on the right of these two, and in a further interview, he says that they were to the right of him. And I'm going to stick with that just for my theory. But they have him over to the right and Dad and Mom over here. But in my opinion, I think it's reversed. And that's going with what Isaac says.
Fish.
Well, they went down there probably.
But all this area is not far. You can't go that far.
10,
and we'll show here in just a second.
And then where's little DeOrr? And Bob says he was.
So the timeline really is that they were fishing for about 30 minutes. Isaac was fishing for a total of about an hour, he believes. But according to the parents, and it's kind of changed a little bit, they said that they were down there for about 15 minutes. And the father goes, after looking at some minnows, goes up to Grandpa to say, "Hey, where is DeOrr?" Because we want to show DeOrr these minnows. And then Grandpa, there's some conflicting stories. He did see him, then he didn't see him, and then the PIs think that he was just sleeping the entire time.
Right here.
Sign of him.
Dennis decided they better call 911.
It's a remote area. You can't get cell phone service.
So I'm assuming, so you went with AT&T. I had Verizon. I did actually have 2 bars out there. And according to Nate Eaton, who's been out there, who's done an amazing job, he said that the cell service has slightly gotten a little bit better. So I'm going to go on a limb and say it's a good possibility that they had Verizon. And they definitely didn't have AT&T.
No. If it's got better for AT&T, I can't imagine what would be worse.
Yeah. And so I was able to make phone calls and had no issues with that. And it does slightly get better as you kind of exit out of the valley. So I
Jessica
think that's
says miraculously she got a signal.
And then this is another thing is supposedly Vernal, the father, he drives a truck up further so he can get more bars. Well, Jessica kind of stays back and she's kind of walking up the road a little bit to kind of get a better signal. So they're spread out. But then there's some issues with that where supposedly you can hear them in they've never released Vernal's 911 call. And anyway, there's some speculation that you can actually hear them, and it's not just because it's overheard through the operator, that they're actually next to each other in the same truck. So that's a theory there. That's just a theory, just pointing out all the different things here. So let's look at let's look at Google Earth, and then we're going to pull up our videos here, and I'll get to some chat here. I'm sorry, guys. Trying to catch up here. But I definitely think Google Earth does it some justice here. Okay. And anytime, Steve, if you have any thoughts you'd like to share, well, please go ahead.
All these images, Google Earth and otherwise, do not give or serve justice to what the campsite is. It's in a choke point within between the two ranges of mountains, and you're in the very bottom of it, just about 10 to 12 feet above a creek on a flat. And on each side of you, 100 yards, 200 yards either side of you, you start having inclines of around 40 degrees plus of going up hundreds, if not 1,000 feet or two. Absolutely amazing. And you're backed into a pinch point. There's not a lot of places for you to be able to walk on any type of level surface. It's either downhill or uphill every moment that you're there.
Right. So here is the campsite where these trailers are. This is the campsite. There is another additional campsite that's just kind of in this corner here. But what you're going to notice is this is almost thinking as a V shape. So you're really kind of bottled in if you head. So this would be technically north, and you're at a lower elevation, 20 feet, give or take. And what you got is you got the creek coming down, and at some point there's kind of like a waterfall, small waterfall set up right here, and it gets really kind of there's a lot of trees. It gets really cramped in there. You're not going to get too far. So the one thing that we were trying to look for is the actual fishing hole. So if you look in that tree of separation, Steve, is this tree right here.
Yes.
And we know, and we've got footage we'll show here in a minute, that all these, where are you seeing the trees? You've got this steep embankment. Steep. I mean, I think there's maybe one or two that are, you can kind of, they're not as bad, but most of these are absolutely steep embankments that go down to the creek. And so if by chance the boy somehow was led into this way and he went down the embankment, one, he should have ran into one of them. If not, if he got caught in the stream, we'll show what happens if he got caught in the stream. So should we do that? And then we'll move on to the next one.
Sure.
Okay. Oh, I'm cheating here. I've got the... and let me get to chat as well. Let me pull up this video. Water test. And we've got sound test. We've got all sorts of tests. Okay. So here's Steve and I, and we're right by the camp. We're just down below here, and we're testing different areas of the creek. And we're going to be doing some tests where we, you want to explain kind of what we were doing there, and I'll get to chat.
Yeah, I had this rod and this pole marked with depth on it to try to find how deep some of the creek areas were. Right here, the water depth was less than 18 inches and almost all of it. And then we throwed in a throw cushion to see that where would be the flow patterns, how far could something, if it was in the water, how far would it be swept downstream, just on the surface of the water. And on this one, I think it only went 49 or 50 feet on the first test from where we initially put it in.
Yeah,
and I think you see how narrow the creek is because Chris was able to recover using this catch pole across the creek every time, the throw cushion. And we did this numerous times. And like I said, we were doing it to see and testing how deep the creek was, how far across it was in different areas, and how far something could be pushed downstream. There's no way that myself, Chris, or even a child such as DeOrr could have been pushed down that creek over this rock surface. I mean, it's only a few inches deep there in the middle.
Yep. So we would go to one section, let the raft go, life vest go to see how far it would float until it got stuck on something, log, rocks. This one I actually let loose again just to see how much further, because we knew it was going to probably get caught up on this. The thing with this is all you experience every 10, 15 feet, right, Steve? There is mostly man-made dams because people are trying to cross over because the creek splits out for a bit and then it comes back in.
This was the furthest run. It went 50 feet, I think. 48 or 50 feet.
Yep, I think you're right.
And that was surprising because I didn't expect. I thought the creek would be far wider, far deeper, and there wouldn't be as many log jams, rock piles, and that we experienced.
Right. Sorry, I accidentally clicked back a little bit.
Yeah.
And the decibel level of the creek at this point is when you're up beside it, it runs, probably around 60 to 70 decibel, which is pretty close to what the normal decibel level of someone talking. So if you're at the creek, as you could hear Chris talking, it's not anything that you could easily overlook hearing someone talk up on the bank. You have to pay attention to what's being said.
So yeah, if he went in this creek, and we've seen him search through that, if he went in that, I'd expect him to be found. He wouldn't have gotten far. There's just no way. No way, Jose, that he would have gotten far. He would have been. I mean, there's just so many man-made dams. You see these logs up ahead. You'll actually see a lot of them that are actually even lower, that are actually kind of cut through the actual creek itself, where you just cross along. And I do have footage of that. I don't know if I have it today. That looks at, well, this will definitely be a 2-3 part series to break down. There's so much that we got. Hey, Chris and Steve, do we know for sure that baby DeOrr was at the campsite? And that's a great question, Fluffy. That is a great question. There's a couple of things that supposedly put him there. Isaac has been the one that supposedly has been told the truth since day one, hasn't really changed his story. I think he's added on a couple of things, but they're nothing like major, or they, conflict what he said before. And then the grandmother for Jessica, which is Trina, she said when she went back, she found a diaper up in the tree, which is now known as the diaper tree. We have some suspicion, some ideas of which tree that might be. There's only a couple, really, but so I do believe that he was there. But what happened from there, it's tough to say. That's a great question. Did they often camp there? If not, how did they find the spot? So apparently Grandpa, who is now passed away, this was a spot that he used to camp a lot when he was younger. And I think he even took his daughter, Jessica, or his granddaughter, his granddaughter, Jessica. But, and this was kind of a thing. Well, Grandpa's getting old. He's going to be passing on. Let's take him to this place that he grew up camping. So, as far as, let's see, did they often camp there? I don't think, as far as like Vernal and Jessica, other than Jessica being, younger, camping there. So, I would say more no. Let's see. Let me get caught up in chat here. And if you guys can, please hit that like button if you haven't already. It really helps. And thank you to those that are donations. Really help us, especially coming back from one of these. Okay, now the let's do the sight test and your little DeOrr thing. Oh gosh, I keep pulling up the wrong. Okay, so let me remove that one and present video file. This one here.
Yeah, I created a cutout of a 36-inch height silhouette so that Chris could place it in the terrain and the brush of the field, and so that we could see from the perspective of standing at the campfire of what it would look like as if DeOrr was out playing in the field. And also we went and did some camera work from the perspective of the eye height of DeOrr looking back at camp. And that's what this line of sight was for, of how quick a child could disappear going in different directions. If he went towards the creek, he could be gone in 40 something feet. If he went towards the road, it was 125 feet. Going across this tumbleweed, tumblebrush area, it would take him 100 yards, 300 feet to get totally out of sight.
Yeah. I'm gonna chat. Okay. Forensics. I think I should get some sleep. 3 a.m. I shall catch up later. Great show and amazing work. Thanks so much, Forensic. And thank you for all the support. Hope you get some rest. So yeah, Steve created this lovely cardboard cutout. So he's about approximately 3 feet. You got he has
And
blonde hair, but you got white.
I put white up on the hairline so that we would have some type of identifier that was easily in contrast to the background.
Yeah. So here's a little look at our campsite. So here is what we're looking at. Let me pull up.
This camera work is from a camera I put on my hip, just below my hip, actually, at 33 inches height, which would have been the eye height of DeOrr if he was walking in these areas.
Yep. So just give you a little perspective. So what we're looking at, because when we put this all together, you're going to get the idea that this is really a funnel. You got a V funnel, and we'll put it all together. So right now we've kind of shown that the creek, if you're going into the creek, you're going to end up in one spot, and I don't see how the parents don't find him, because he'd just be caught up somewhere. And I don't even know if he would drown unless he got knocked out. But then they should have found him. So now we're going to look at the way it funnels you out, and then we'll talk about this other side here next, because this is also important as to why this is all just one big funnel that really just leads you towards the entrance. So now we're at the campsite, and although, oh gosh, I hate when I do this because then I gotta get out of there. I'm gonna have to close it. Anyway, we're looking, obviously the brush, but we're looking towards the entrance, kind of. So let me go back here. And this brush is about what, 1.5 foot tall?
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, it's you'll see. Whereas, like I said, at 33-inch height, that you're just looking over it. Sometimes some of the of the weeds is actually probably 33 to 3 feet tall, because some of these bushes are just above the line of sight of the camera I was holding.
Yeah. Thank you, Casey. Yeah, I think we've got a lot, and there's still a lot to more to show. And we got the audio test, which is really interesting coming up. So this is kind of giving an idea of, if you were DeOrr's height, what you would be seeing, right, Steve?
Absolutely. I turned around for that purpose of looking back at camp. If he was at that position, what could he see? And that was probably somewhere around 50 yards out. This next one's probably close to 80 or 90 yards out. And then the final turnaround will be just at the 100 plus turnaround looking back at camp. It was a beautiful day, beautiful weather. And like I said, you can just barely see camp if you stop.
Yeah, I'm going to pause that, go back. So have we passed that tree yet? No, I think you
No, we're not.
There's the tree.
There's the
Okay.
tree that we were going towards.
Oh. Oh, psych. Sorry. Oh, come on. There it is. There's the
Yeah,
tent.
there's
So
camp
we
on
can
the
kind
right
of see the
edge.
tent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's probably around 85, 90 yards out.
But if you were DeOrr, you would have actually lost visual of him if you were at the campsite within what? What did we
Right
calculate?
around 90 yards to 100 yards. Right here, absolutely. There's no, either way. I could just barely see the top of Chris at this point. And then, of course, this is where we go out to the road from the fire pit, which was our ground zero of the campsite. It was 100 foot. This is the perspective from DeOrr if he's looking back at 33 inches from the ground, his eye height. And then if he went down the trail 25 feet, you look back, you can just barely see the camp. You can see the vehicle. And then every 25 feet down this road, which is a pretty good incline, that you absolutely lose sight of the campground and everything within the first 25 to 50 feet going down this road.
Yeah. And you would lose visual pretty quick because obviously the road's a little bit,
Lower.
flatter.
Yep.
It's lower.
Yep.
So if he was on the road.
And if you're at the campsite looking at the road, you lose sight of him at the first 25 feet. As soon as he gets behind that big rock, he's gone.
Yeah. And even right there, I don't even think we could see the camp. Let me go back.
No, you can't. After, I think it's the 75-foot mark, there's no camp from DeOrr's perspective at all.
Yeah. Maybe if that tree wasn't there, maybe, but yeah, maybe see the top of the tent from there. But yeah, if that. Yeah, you barely see the top of the tent. It really just blends into everything else because I forget you guys can't see my mouse.
And then
This
I have
rock,
the tunnel of where you, when you leave the, come back to the camp and you walk across from the road and you go past the fire pit. It's only 44 feet to that embankment. And once you go down that bank and it's steep, I mean, he could be out of sight in 10 seconds.
Yep. It's kind of hard to see out to zoom in. There's a squirrel right on this top rock here, and we're zoomed out. I'll get some close zooms. He's gonna move right now.
Yeah.
We had a squirrel.
And he stayed with us the whole time there. I mean, he was there every day. And that's something that might have led DeOrr down to the road. Did he see that squirrel? Was he wanting to play with it? Who knows?
Yeah. So, and then you're going to go from our campsite right down to the creek, and then we'll lead into our audio test. This is going to show you how steep. I mean, I kind of went down it, but this is a pretty good angle here. This is going to show you how steep most of the embankment, no matter where you come across, even if you go further down, it is a very steep embankment. So if DeOrr went down this, the possibilities of him coming back up, not impossible, but wouldn't be easy.
Oh no. Like I said, I didn't fall down that hill.
I know. I'm surprised neither one of us fell. I'm sure I got close quite a few times. I mean, some of these embankments I had to slide down on my butt because they're about what 10 to 15 feet, give or take.
Yeah, almost all of them. They pretty close to around the extension pole that we were using for measurements was 12 feet, and generally it was only 2 to 3 feet visible while you were standing on the bottom. So most of these banks are 10 foot.
And so I'm just trying to pause it. Yeah, this is our path right here. To the right of this tree is our path, and our camp is right up this tree here. So just to give you an idea, is once you get down that bank, you have no visual of the campsite.
And huge logs down there at the base of that closest spot down that hill like I said, it's 44 feet away. And once you went down the hill, there's a huge log jam. If he was down there playing in the water, if anything happened, he wouldn't have been carried away at all.
Yeah.
By water.
Right. Dandelion is a member for 8 months. Thank you for your travels. Great info on this case. Thank you so much, Dandy, for your support, and to everybody being here, taking the time out of their day to spend with us on this Monday evening. Get caught up in chat. Now we're going to do some sound tests, which are very interesting because there is something that was said by the parents or someone, and I do have to call them out on that, at least on this one. Question: how many minutes did it take to walk from the camp to the water? It's a great question. From that area just to the closest would be 1 minute. To the closest one, right? The closest?
Well, I mean, to the creek. I mean, if you're talking about just to the creek channel, yes, 44 feet. How fast can you walk 44 feet? You know, probably 15, 20 seconds, and taking your time getting down.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of adding.
That's what would take 1 minute.
Under a minute. Yeah.
But under a minute. Now, if you was just running flat out, trying to run from a bear, I could probably get to the water in 15 seconds.
Yeah.
Because I could get off the top of that bank pretty quick.
Right. Okay, let me check chat, and then we're going to show you the audio test, which I think is very interesting because I want to play something. And like I said, our main goal is to find DeOrr, and we're going to go back out there, and when it's get set up next year. But as far as who we think or is irrelevant, we're not here to really point fingers, although there's some stuff that I do want to point out that there's some inconsistencies on the stories, but I think me and Steve both agree the direction that he headed, whether it's by his own means or another, I think we both agree on that there's one way he went. Just because it is a funnel. So let's get to
if we look at this and that we discuss these opposite views on some of this stuff, because there are certain things that you brought to the table about why you believe that there was possibility of some interactions, and I looking more along what threats may be there from either whales or old mining holes or any of that nature, and because we have to there's impacts and understandings of the terrain that until we got there, did it change my opinion a little bit? Absolutely. I wouldn't have reached the conclusions that we have, and we still got a lot of stuff that we got to analyze.
Yes. Okay, something I want to bring up here, and then this will go into the sound test. So let me get it. Okay, it's right here. It's just something the mother says. Now she's blocked right here because obviously this is taken from Missing 411, so I had to kind of transform it into my own content, so I'm not taking his. But there's something she says here that I have to kind of say, no, this is not right.
So we realized that he was going to go back to camp with my grandpa, so we headed up. I figured he was with my grandpa, he was fine. And we walked up to the creek, and Isaac said that right here is where we were fishing and caught fish, and he turned around and walked back towards this way. DeOrr and I stayed up by the creek and kind of just looked in the water and looked to see if we could see any fish. I started getting my fishing gear ready.
Now just listen how loud it is as they're talking, but I brought my Yeti mic, which is a very sensitive mic. It's got surround just like normal human hearing, but you can even advance it. And I've got this test here in just a minute, but just listen to what she says here.
I figured this was kind of a good spot to fish.
And there's one spot that had minnows in it, and they were just stuck there. They couldn't get out from the low level, and I thought, God, this would be neat for him to see. Jessica stayed at the creek, and I walked up the bank and got back up on the bank and went towards camp, and I yelled to Bob, "Where's little DeOrr?"
I could hear voices up in the camping area. And you can actually, where I'm standing right now, you can actually see the table, the picnic table that's in our campground. But I could hear DeOrr.
So they are further down, Steve. So they're almost towards the end. Keep that in mind. They're so they're past the tree.
That has that gentle slope. There's only one section.
Yes, yeah, which is pretty close to the end. And I'll point that on the map.
DeOrr's voice, I just couldn't make out what he was saying.
See right here.
Bob, where's little DeOrr?
I could hear voices up in the camping area. And you can actually, where I'm standing right now, you can actually see the table, the picnic table that's in.
And look where they're standing, Steve. They're not on one side of the creek. They're actually in the island. So they're actually between the two creeks. Further away, I'm sorry, this doesn't add up. I'm sorry, not
in our campground. But I could hear DeOrr's voice. I just couldn't make out what he was saying.
I hollered to him, "Where's my..."
And then supposedly, Vernal goes up and says, "Hey, where are they at?" So here's a video that I wanted to play that I'm really excited that we did this test here. Audio test for water. Okay, here it is. So this is just audio. I've just got some screenshots.
Mike.
So you'll slowly kind of hear, if you really listen, you'll hear a generator going. Now I am close to the generator here in just a minute. That's the generator. Can you hear that, Steve?
Yeah, I hear the generator.
Mike.
The decibel level when you're standing there beside the fire pit is around 40-something decibels for the creek and for the generator. I have it written. I think generator may have been at 50 decibels.
Hill?
I thought it was 70.
Well, it is when I was over there next to it, but when I was back in the fire pit.
Oh, okay. Oh, I got you. Okay, I got you. So I am walking towards the little steep embankment any second here.
Did you hear it?
You're halfway down the hill, you lose that, and the creek takes over.
And you were coming back up because you were doing a sound test. So you're coming up the hill, and I'm about to go down it. And I'm really hearing the creek and not really the generator, although you can hear it.
62 decibels, 62.5 decibels.
Halfway downhill. At the bottom of the hill. Standing next to creek.
And that generator's gone. I mean, that generator's gone pretty much as I was walking up to the creek. I mean, once you got to about halfway down the hill, it was kind of mixed. I don't know how it was for you. I think we agreed that once you got down the bottom.
Yeah, about halfway up that bank is where you lost sound of the generator. But we also I don't know if we got any of the cars passing, but on audio, but we could hear. Depends on the vehicle as they pass.
Sure, but I think the generator is a pretty good.
Yeah, almost like a four-wheel.
Yeah, they're fairly loud. Yeah, so the father was DeOrr, and the baby was DeOrr Jr. They'd call him Little DeOrr. And then see now you can. So now I'm coming back up. You'll actually start to hear the generator come back in. I'm probably like tripping up the embankment.
Base camp.
Yep,
Base camp.
So yeah, you can hear the generator again, but once you go down, and that generator, for anyone that knows the generator, fairly loud. Sound like an ATV motor, and yeah, they definitely kind of the sound drowns out for sure. Any thoughts on that, Steve?
Oh no, I mean, like I said, we did the, we spent a lot of time doing that, and then the final test of you running around the hillside, screaming DeOrr, and
Yes.
we was getting decibel levels on that.
Yes.
And so, I mean, we try to cover every avenue of could he have, if a child was yelling, at what decibels could you have heard him? And if he's looking for mama or mama and them's yelling for him, where could he be? And could he have heard mom and dad yelling? And I believe so, that if he was in that valley, now I don't know how far down the road. That's one thing that we didn't, I wish we had of, is went down from longest point and determine when the vocal search would not have been heard by the other party.
Right. Okay, so now that you kind of get a little more context here, so you're funneled up here. You've got the creek here. So anything and where the parents are supposedly at and where everybody's at.
Now, when you're looking at this funnel, you have to imagine that where the trees are, they're in the bottom of a ravine with a creek. The creek, and I mean steep incline on both sides.
Yes.
50 to 100 feet of steep bank. That if you're in the bottom of it, that the only way, if you're walking in the bottom of the creek, there's no way to pass by. I mean, it's very narrow, and so you would have to climb one of the embankments to get past someone.
Yeah. And I've got a few more videos. I've got more. I still got to download stuff. I kind of overloaded my PC, and so I've got to play around with some things. But now let's talk about this side here. And I've got some video evidence that I'm going to have to do for next show. But let's talk about this upper hill first. Okay, this actually does it justice, and I've got some drone shots taken from earlier. But this show that we were kind of interested in before, we had no idea how steep this is. I mean, this is you're not getting up this. You're not rock climbing up this. It is just absolutely almost cliff like vertical. Then you have this area here, which is still not as steep, but it's pretty darn steep. So in my opinion, and I think Steve could probably agree with me, is if he was just walking and he went up one of these little ridges here, everything echoes. So, because you're in this like little valley, so everything echoes. And we do have tested that, and I'll have to do it next video. Where I was up on this little valley here shouting at Steve at camp, and him likewise. He was actually just doing normal voices, and I could hear him just fine. So, but the other thing is that it's steep enough that, because the more you start going up before this road here, that all I could see with the 2-year-old with boots that are supposedly 2 sizes big, I just see him tumbling down halfway. That's my opinion. What do you think, Steve? I mean, he's...
Yeah. Well, I mean, he can only go on level ground or not even really level ground, but for probably around 100 yards, and then you're on that bank, and then you're climbing. And we're only talking about a window of opportunity of 10 to 15 minutes at most, if we take the timeline of the parents.
Right. And
that's true the whole valley down.
Yes. So really, me and Steve both agree. And like I said, we've got more evidence and we'll do another show here. I just don't have time to get everything taken off. Is this really just funnels you one way, and that is back this way towards the entrance, which also kind of funnels you to the gate where the entrance is, which is somewhere about here.
Yep. And if you go on Google Earth and you look at, you'll see that, yes, this is a national forest, but there's not a lot of trees there. I mean, they're on this one hillside, but once you get up there, I mean, it, you know, I can understand why the searchers, that once you go further north, because this is on the north slope facing, that as you go downhill, you go into cattle country, and there's nothing there but the tumbleweed brush, whatever it's called, it's open within 3/4 of a mile, or a mile probably.
Right. Here's just a little drone shot here as they're zooming out. That's the campsite. And yeah, that lake and reservoir is much higher. I mean, there's just, in our both opinions, there's no way by himself he's getting up that.
Yeah, I had always thought that the roads was level out there, even the ones that went past and went to the reservoir. I didn't realize that the road going to the reservoir is 100 feet above the camp, or close to it.
Right. There's Steve making his DeOrr Kunz.
Yeah, my silhouette.
Yep, was a brilliant idea, and we've got some more tests with that. Jason Watts, good to see you. What's up, Chris? How you doing, Jason? Hope you're doing well, buddy. As always, would love to have you on one of these excursions. So, here's me at the bottom of the hill, just kind of pointing at the line of sight here.
Can't barely hear it.
Someone asked, could he be up in these logs? We know that they search these heavily, which is, it's not a bad question, but I think they would
Blends in with the creek. Always got to get a squirrel. God, that's a lot of poop.
Yeah, I got to figure out what poop that was. So possible for a human predator, complete stranger to have been preying in the tree line, preying. I think it's possible. Steve, your thoughts on that?
Well, I have a better understanding now. There was rumors about that. I think it was Grandpa or someone from camp said that people were at the reservoir. You can hear people going to the reservoir.
Yes.
But you can't hear anything from anyone at the reservoir. And so during that time frame, and actually we went up there to some overwatch positions, which in law enforcement means simply you're on high ground overlooking valleys or areas that you're targeting, trying to collect information on. And along the approach to the reservoir, there are some locations where you could look down into the flat of where the campsite area is and see parts of the camp. Is it possible? Yes. Is it likely? I don't know. But if DeOrr is down slope heading on the north face, and you have a chance encounter by someone that is a predator, then of course anything is possible, and an abduction could occur.
Right. Steve is an artist. Yes. As I said, we've got a lot here, and I've got more more to show in a next show that we do. Here is kind of getting further toward, well, no, this is actually right at our base camp here. But the other thing, is they talk about how they kind of split out and they're out looking at these fishing holes, but it's not far. I mean, we're talking about 4-minute walk to the furthest from, especially the separation point. I mean, you're not going far until you're just going down the embankment and then everything's right there. So this is where there's some red flags for me as far as
all the way back to where the choke point is. I think it's less than it's 500 and something feet from our.
Yeah,
because I walked it off and measured it, and so from the fire pit all the way to the furthest point of where going up this creek to where it gets to the narrows right below the reservoir is only 500 something feet.
Yeah. But yeah, this thing is loud, and I would think this is maybe kind of an off season, because one of the things about the lake that we ran into is the lake isn't that deep. We probably went there at its lowest because obviously early summer, the snow melts and it fills up the reservoir. So I'm assuming it goes up. I don't know how many feet. We got to look back, but the reservoir, what, 2 feet? Feet and a half?
Well, I'm sure it's regardless of the depth, it's crystal clear. It's like looking through glass. It's
unless you're
amazing,
trudging
just
through
like
it.
this creek is. I mean, it's absolutely crystal clear in the conditions when we were there. And I don't know what July would be different on it, but I'm sure there's some, while looking at it, like I said, you could wade across it if you went by what the reporter advised.
Yeah. Yeah. If you guys have any questions for Steve or I, go ahead and put them in. See if we can knock a few out. Because we've been kind of going on for 2 hours here. So, and I've got much more footage. I've got more footage of the other side, which is the side where we do some shouting tests. I've got to get that. So,
and I've got to send you the pictures of the lake and the depths and stuff on the lake. So I'll get those to you sometime this weekend, hopefully.
Yeah, no rush.
Or in the next day or two, not by this weekend, but next day or two.
Yeah, and so here's just this is a great look. This is a perfect example. I mean, this is sheer cliff where all the rocks are at. And this, it's not too bad here, but then it just goes. It's like if anybody knows like what a half ramp or a half pipe is like, this is what it's like. It starts out okay, and then it's just whoop. So to me, to get up to this road, if he tried walking up any of these inside, he would have been tumbling back down, in my opinion.
Yeah.
One more thing I wanted to say that I didn't think about that really has me curious, and I've got to go back to your video, so let me play this one more time, because this did actually raise an eyebrow to me. Is your little point of view here is if he's walking through this, because I walked through it, you walked through it. One of the big issues here is if he's walking through this, which there is a lot of this, unless you're walking on the road. I almost lost my boots, which are on pretty tight. And I know if I had my other shoes, I would have probably slipped out of one of them. So makes me wonder if this kid was walking through this stuff. In my opinion, we should have found a boot. We should have found a boot in here if he walked this path. That's just my opinion. But you've got all this brush. It's got sticks coming out. You tripping. You really, I'm tall, so I can take long strides and strafe and get around. But if you're just a little kid, I would think you're going to be tripping. Something's going to come off, in my opinion.
Yeah, this is all sagebrush. I think it's a proper name for it. It's sagebrush.
Yeah. And it's kind of got these little tight roots that kind of connect to each other, and to me, it's easy to trip, get caught on something. And to me, if he went through this little field, I just feel like there would have been some kind of evidence. Personally, my opinion, though. That's a good question. Did they take pictures of the family there? That is a great question, because I thought there was maybe one or two, but I have not seen any that look like they're at this campsite. So I don't think they do, but I could be wrong. Oh, well, the road, did y'all say there was a few people driving on it? Where does it go? Yeah, so there's two main roads. And this is actually very interesting that we learned. So the road that we took, this is, let's see. The road we took takes it in here. Now there's two roads to get up to the reservoir. So I'll turn it around. You've got this one to the right, which actually goes down pretty steep. This doesn't even do it justice. It goes steep down. It actually goes into the creek. So you actually got to cross the creek, which is a couple of inches. And then you end up coming up the right, and it takes you up above. So now you're driving, because we did hear some kind of vehicles kind of going up here. And this is where we went there. I guess this is a pretty big campsite. The campers were stationed here.
Multiple vehicles.
Yeah, there was a large crowd there. And then we couldn't take that route, so we ended up taking this route. And we ended up going this way, which kind of takes you above the creek a little bit. And let me tell you, we're way above the creek.
Yeah, you're above the reservoir there, quite a ways.
It's a cliff. It's a 100-foot cliff, easy. Eventually starts taking you down, and we ended up having to kind of park a ways from it, and then kind of walking down. There are there's a
very
campsite
gentle
here.
grade into the lake. It's not very thick. You would have to wade way out into it before you got. It's almost like walking into the ocean. It's not on this side of it. It's very, as you can see, the shallows, and we have some pictures that we'll show you next day or two.
Yeah, it's all along the shore. It's not more than a foot deep. There's some disappointment, because I wanted to get in there, but just too many things. And then we had battery problems because it was cold. All our batteries were getting depleted, so that sucked. So most of my batteries on day 3 were fried. Let's see. Steve, any final thoughts? Let me just check here.
No, like I said, there's a lot of stuff to still. Will I get it all downloaded and broke down and in the next week? I doubt it, because we collected, we were there Friday night, Saturday, Sunday, and then Monday morning partly doing work each of the 4 days. And still other work that we probably could have stayed another day or two.
Connie says, great on-site coverage. Chris and Steve brings everything into perspective. Thank you so much. And yeah, we've got much more. And yeah, because I want to focus on the other side, because we got a lot of footage on the would that be the east side of it, I believe. Yeah. And just kind of show that perspective. And then I'll probably do a video, just an overall video, but we definitely have plans to go back out there, and especially everybody got me that equipment, the wetsuits, and I feel absolutely terrible. We just, it was out of our hands, when it comes to that day. Just everybody, we had campers there. It's kind of a, people are fishing. You got to be respectful to that. And then the lake was at its lowest. Just many variables.
Clear. I mean, it absolutely beautiful lake. And terrain and country. I could see why people would go there. Like I said, I spent a lot of my life outdoors, and I never experienced anything like this. And it was an enjoyable experience. Tragically, we were there for such a situation as a missing child, but something that I had been looking forward to doing and getting some answers for myself. And I thank Chris for going with me and helping. And
Yeah. Oh yeah. It was a fun experience. And for the members, my Patreons, I did because I did a campfire. Steve did a campfire. I was brought up to build campfires a certain way. Steve, I guess, a different way. We both got them done. That's all that matters at the end of the day. But so I uploaded the one I did, and then I'm going to do Steve's because I got Steve's on camera, which is funny.
oh yeah.
They get the job done, but
But now I want y'all to be honest and vote who could build.
Oh yeah, we could do that.
Yeah.
Actually, what I'll do is I'll maybe next show I'll do a collage with the two campfires, maybe kind of sped up, and people can vote. But
Chris is more of a TP naturalist, very minimal use of wood. That is not my.
Yours is accelerants.
Oh yeah,
and more accelerant, and
yes,
and the biggest
if you
logs
want
you
fire,
can get.
I'm gonna give you a fire.
Yeah, from nothing to a bonfire. Which, at that time it was cold. It got cold as hell.
Yeah,
I was expecting it to get cold, but that was cold on much colder, much colder than I was anticipating.
Because once like I said, Chris worked on the fire, and it was damp wood that morning, and he worked on it, and I said, "You want me to give it a shot?" And he said, "Yes," and he most certainly appreciated what happened a few minutes later.
Yeah. Why did he call? Oh, I think I already answered this one. Yeah, because there was 2 DeOrrs. I'm just going through. But once again, I just want to quickly shout out to my wonderful mods who do an amazing job. Jennifer, Copper Horse, D-Dez, Karen, Jocelyn in here. I think I hope I'm not missing anybody. And then just a special shout out to Anna, Fluffy, and Dandy for your contributions, and Carol. We can't do these without the donations to be able to go out. If those will come in, it really helps us because YouTube takes a huge portion of everything. So I just want to thank you guys. And I've got stuff for the Patreons, as I was just talking about. And I think I need to do something for the members. I haven't done one for this week, so I will do that. And then we'll have Steve on maybe next week. And then I think we'll probably be doing this again, and we'll have more footage. Like I said, I still got to do stuff, and Steve's got to send me some stuff. So, but yeah, our main thing is to find DeOrr, whether who wasn't involved. That's secondary. Let the law enforcement do their thing. If one thing I did want to add in, but that'll be in the next live, is you can't just dig anywhere. But we'll show that in the next video. That was very interesting because it's very rocky. Idaho is a very, it's got, it's the gem state. So you can't just, you can, but you'd have to have some, unique.
Yeah, you have to go to a certain location and find certain conditions. And I was able to find a location where you could easily dig, but it was, looking and actually accidentally finding it, that once you discover there's a technique of digging, but some of that surface out there is rocky, hard, and but as Chris will show you.
Yeah, it was something different. Chatting about digging, yes. And speaking of unearthed secrets, she said she is going live tomorrow at. You're making me do the math again. pull it up real quick. 9 p.m. Eastern time. We like to use Eastern time, so we don't have to add or subtract. 9 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow, right? You didn't get back to me as what you're covering. So if you want to put in the comments what you're covering, so I can let them know. Yeah, I would go with Eastern time, Carolyn. It makes things a whole lot easier if you just go for one extreme or the other. Yeah. But yeah, she'll be covering something. Hopefully she'll let us know in the next few seconds. Steve, anything else before
No, I appreciate you having me. I appreciate you going and us working to collaborating together. Made it a whole lot easier because I couldn't have done all the testing I had listed out by myself, and it answered a lot of questions I had. And there's still more to do out there, and we'll get out there hopefully sometime after spring, because it is such a long way, and so remote.
Okay. And then you go live. I think she goes 9 Eastern.
I'll be 8. I go 8.
Yeah. Okay. So you're before here. Okay. Yep. Sounds good. All right. Looks like she's answering questions. People do like that. They love that interaction. Steve as well. Same thing. Link is to his channels pinned at the top. Also, if you'd like to make a sizable donation, you can go to his website, which is also pinned at the top and will be in the description of this video as well for those that are rewatching. And we will do this again. Thank you so much, Steve, for your amazing work.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And it's an honor to be here. And everybody stay safe out there, and I'll see y'all soon.
All right, buddy. I'm going to put you backstage unless you're going, but I'm going to whip you back there. And let me close some of these real quick. And I just wanted to say, yeah, I'll do a video breaking down more of the Delphi case because there's just so much. I'm going to be up all night reading this stuff. This is absolutely crazy, but so expect that. And then probably Wednesday, we'll probably do another live on the Delphi because you could be breaking that stuff down for a week. So with that said, thank you again. And special thanks again to everybody that got equipment for me. And I feel terrible that I couldn't use everything, but just some things were out of our hands. We couldn't do it, but we will definitely do it again. Link, Chris, link, please. Or did you say that? Link to Steve's channel. Can somebody get the link to Unearth Secrets if you haven't already? What that? Did I miss? Oh, there it is. There it is. Let me pin that. So Copper Horse has got it right there. Oh, I can't do it in here. That's why. There it is. All right. I'll pin hers now. Place pin. Okay. So the link to Unearth Secrets is pinned at the top, if that's the one you're asking for. And then all the links are always in the description of my videos. So with that said, I love you guys. I'm sorry for the outros. I don't have them ready because we had so much going on. So tomorrow or Wednesday, we'll get back on track. So I love you guys. Thank you so much, mods, for your wonderful work. And we will see you guys Wednesday. Much love.